Hey, what's up, everybody? This is your boy AJTRIP, and welcome to the game according to me. This is a special version. Not only is this the podcast version, but this is also on YouTube, and this is a special version. We're not doing our weekly wrap up of what's going on in the NFL and in the college football world and what's happening on sports. No. This is a special one. We're talking about the things that should stay around when COVID-19 is gone. Sports edition. There will be a real world life edition to this. Not a podcast version, but it will be on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/AJTRIP20, or search AJTRIP in the search bar for the podcast listeners. That will be up around soon for those who are watching this, and listening to this. But this is the sports edition, so we're going to talk about the things that should stay in sports. We've got about 4 or 5 things to talk about here. So maybe a couple more than that. So, but let's go ahead and let's go right into it. This should be a very, hopefully, very informing and themed topic. So let's check it out. Let's talk about it. So let's start with the NBA schedule. And I think one of the things that have been talked about the past 3 or 4 years is the NBA starting later. NFL is a massive giant, and I think for people to think that the NFL doesn't take away from the NBA, I think is ludicrous. It obviously does, and especially if especially when football is on Thursday nights now, and NBA does Thursday nights, a lot of times as well. Thursday night NBA on TNT, I'm sure it takes away from it. So let's talk about instead of trying to compete with the NBA, you can start later. Start at Christmas time. Christmas Day is the biggest day of the year in the NBA. So why not make that our opening day? And some thought with COVID-19 going around and happening, that this might be the best chance for that to happen. For this, to start around, to start on Christmas. Now there has been a little bit of backlash, and there's been some reasonable thought as to why maybe a start date of Christmas Day maybe isn't the right idea. 2021, the Olympics were supposed to be this year. The Olympics have been postponed to next year, so every 4 years you would have the Olympics, and if you started in December, the NBA playoffs would fall into the time when the Olympics would happen. So would that be, especially if you kept it at an 82 game schedule, would that be, that would be awful, because then now you're trying to get away from competing with the NFL, but now here you are, you're competing with the Olympics every 4 years. The Olympics do big numbers most of the time. So would that be a problem? The players, some players want to have their summer vacations. Right now, as the way you're doing it, the playoffs, the NBA Finals ends in mid to late June, and that gives players their July and August for this. Right now, if you were to push it back to December, to Christmas, they wouldn't have their summer vacation. Christmas, June, July, and August would off be the playoffs. Your off time would be September and October and November and things like that. So it's and that's something that maybe you don't necessarily want. Right, you necessarily wouldn't want. And then there's the other things about some other situations that could be going on with the effect of the 82 game schedule going that long and going falling all the way into the summer, and how does that affect drafts with the players and coming out of college, and how does it affect free agency and other things like that. So there's a lot of things that that are some negatives to maybe starting on Christmas. And I can see that. That being said, I think there are a few other ways to rectify those situations. I think one of those, and it's something that I wasn't for at first, but it's something I think I'm for, definitely for now. I would be at least interested in seeing how it would look, is to redoing the NBA schedule, going from 82 games to 66 games. And here's how you go from 82 to 66. What happened? I use the Bulls. I'm a Bulls fan, so I use my Bulls as an example. Take the Bulls. They're in the Central Division. There's 6 divisions in the whole NBA. The other 25 teams not in the Bulls division, you play twice. Once at home, once on the road. 2 times 25 is 50. Now, 4 teams in their division: Cleveland, Indiana, Detroit, Milwaukee. You'd play those 4 times. 2 at home, 2 on the road. 4 times 4 is 16. 50 plus 16, 66. That's how you get 66. And with that 66 game schedule, you should be able to create I think you would be able to create a schedule that you can start. Maybe even start in Christmas, but you can start in early December, and that would take you to just take you a month later. That would take you a month later from what you're doing now. So normally now you finish in June, mid to late June. I think you can take it the same thing. It would just finish a month later, and you would finish to mid to late July, and that would still leave you August. And every 4 years, the Olympics, right? The Olympics are usually in August. They're either in middle August, or they start like at the very earliest, the last couple of days in July. But that's over and done with. Your NBA Finals is over and done before late July. So and guess what? It also keeps you. The players would have a summer vacation, at least for August and September, right? And if it ever goes back to having NBA players in the Olympics, the players could play in those Olympics as well. So I think it's an all working thing with NBA. But I think Adam Silver, he's open to a lot of things. A lot of things I think are ridiculous, like all kinds of tournaments and things like that. I think those are ridiculous. But I think this could work. So Adam Silver, if you're watching or if you're listening, yes, do this. This later NBA schedule, not competing with the NFL, but starting in a later in December, at the earliest December, latest Christmas, I think can work, and I think you should really think about trying this out at least one time. The COVID has done work on sports in a way that now you are starting, this season, the 2020-2021 season, on December 22nd. And I think maybe you should think about keeping it like this. I really do. And not just having trying to, not trying to doing it this year so that you can try to get it back to normal. Think about this. Really, really think you should think about this. Next, the college football schedules. And so for what has seemingly been years, college football teams have made schedules where it's 4, 5, 6 years in advance, and never understood that. Because you might be one team and you make your schedule. Oh, you know what? We're going to we're going to schedule Texas A&M. Texas A&M is such a good team. We're going to schedule Texas A&M in 2024 and 2025. In 2024, 2025 come around, Texas A&M is the doormat of the SEC. And here you are, you're BYU independent trying to make it into the playoffs. That doesn't help you. A blowout winner against Texas A&M, that doesn't help you. You thought it might, but it's not going to help you. Same thing, maybe you say we're gonna schedule the Washington Huskies, but here they come around and they're not good. They just made the college football players like a couple years ago. They just made the college football playoff. Oh, they're gonna be a good team. We're scheduled 2024, 2025. Oh, wait a minute. 2024, 2025. They're getting their ass whooped in the Pac-12 North each and every week. That's not good for me. It's good for my team, right? So what they did this year, and understand what I'm saying. I'm not talking about what happened with BYU in Coastal Carolina, right? I'm not talking about that where Coastal Carolina had a game against Liberty scheduled, but Liberty had to cancel because they were having COVID issues, and BYU, looking for a game, stepped up to the plate on a Tuesday, and then they had 3 days to prepare and travel to Coastal Carolina to play them, and they played them, and they lost to Coastal Carolina, but I'm not talking about something like that. That's a 2020 COVID thing only. But what I do think should stay is the fact of just making schedules pretty quickly, right? There's no reason why you should tend to make your schedule 3 or 4 or 5 years in advance. You should be able to make your schedule that early in the year. Your schedule, you should be able to make your schedule for this year, each year by like June. Okay. So, if you BYU and you say, okay, so you either get this one, I think we should play Coastal Carolina again. Try to play that. You know what? North Carolina was a good team this year. Let's play North Carolina. I'm loving what USC has been doing. Let's play USC. The BYU's independent, so they can do this, right? Let's see if we can schedule them. Let's see if we can schedule all of these teams, right? See if we can schedule all of these teams. And they may or may not be able to do that with my other thought in a second, and I'll give you that in a minute. But this, that's the way it should be. It shouldn't be. Well, we 5 years ago we scheduled, San Diego State and Murray State and Booger State and all these other states, and so they have to stay with them, and that shouldn't be the case. You should be able to check, have your schedule, only do your schedule, something like that. If you want to say, okay, we want to play Ohio State at a home and home, fine, but it shouldn't be the 2024 or 2025, right? It should be 2021, 2022. Make it for that year. That's perfectly fine. I mentioned that maybe BYU couldn't do that, and that's because BYU is independent, so they're taking games from all over the place, right? They don't have a special thing. Notre Dame is an independent, although they have an agreement with the ACC, and they're playing the ACC this year because of this. But they have an agreement where they'll play 5 games in the ACC with against ACC team. That's they have an agreement for that, and then they can schedule the other 7 games. And they're also independent. But that being said, I also think that the conferences, right? One of the things that happened this year because of COVID is that all of the conferences were just playing just conference games. They weren't playing too many, if any at all, outside of the conference. I think maybe the Big 12 you were able to play one game outside the conference, but the other games had to be in conference. And I think one of the non-Power 5 conferences was doing that as well. You could play one game outside of your conference, but most of the other games had to be in your conference because they knew that there was going to be some things happening with cancellations, with movements, and everything like that. They could see that in the forefront. Although the Big Ten obviously couldn't. The Big Ten, big and bad Big Ten, thinking they have clout like the NBA. The NBA says we're canceling, and every other sport cancels. Big Ten says we decided not to play. Oh, you decided not to play college football. And other people in the college football world said, okay, you cannot play. We're gonna play. Screw you, Big Ten. And now Big Ten's all worried about Ohio State and everything like that. That's going to be a whole big controversy for another day. Yeah. So I also think that should stay around. More conference games. I think not only does that help you with having a better conference champion, but I also think it's better off when if you feel more okay when it comes to these teams in the college football playoff. By the way, college football playoff needs to be expanded, and we've been talking about that and everything like that. And that should have been happened. That probably could happen. Again, we talked about again, the stuff that has happened that you could do, in so quick of a time because of this COVID-19 issue. There's not any reason right now that after this season, the new year, after it has been consummated, and we have a new college football champion. There's no reason that the NCAA can get together with ESPN or everything like that, break away their contract, and say we are now going to 8 teams. So our contract for 4 is over. We're going to renegotiate, and now we're going to do 8 teams. But that's neither here nor there. What should happen is that these teams should play more division games and get rid of these teams. There's no reason FBS teams in the Power 5 should be playing FCS teams. I cannot stand that. When Clemson is playing the Citadel or Alabama is playing Alabama A&M, yes, you may be giving them $50 million so that you can run up 90 points on them. But it's no reason, and they do them most of the time for the home games. So it's game number 11 in their season. When game number 11 should be against somebody in your conference. That's what I get, and I've said this before. I talked about this before in the video. Some of these, if it was me, Power 5 conferences would not play FCS teams. They just wouldn't. And if you are going to play a non-Power 5 conference team, you have to do it on the road. You have to do it in their gym. So if Alabama wants to play Utah State, they will play Utah State at Utah State. They're not playing at Alabama. They're not doing that because that's saying, so it's but all of that needs to be thought about. But when it comes to college football schedules, there is no reason why teams can't play more conference games. You play 12 games a season, play at least 10 conference games, maybe 9 at the most, maybe at the least, maybe 9, but about 10. You want to go 10. I think that's perfect. And then you should be able to play. You should be able to make your schedules within, the same year. You can make it March or April of that year. You make schedules 10, 12 years, 5 years down the line. That does not make any sense. It does not. So we've got 2 here from Major League Baseball. The playoffs, right? We'll start with the playoffs. This past year, because of COVID, they expanded the playoffs from 10 to 16, 8 in each league. And when you hear that, you go, well, it's okay, whatever. You don't particularly like it, but it's COVID. You want baseball. You want sports. All right, fine. Let's go ahead and then let's do sports. Right? Let's go ahead and let's have sports. 16-team playoffs, whatever. But by gosh, if the 16-team playoff wasn't an actually fun and good idea, actually, when you look back on it. I thought it was great. Some fun action. Teams that would have normally made it, and it was even a couple upsets from those teams. Enjoyed the heck out of it, right? And loved it. So I think it should stay. I actually think it should stay. I think we should have, and I think it should stay exactly the way they've had it. You know, where the first round is the best 2 out of 3. All 3 games are at the higher seeds home stadium, 1, 2, 3, and 4. All of those games are at those teams, at those rankings home. And then you go to, you know, the quarterfinals is the best out of 5, 2, 2, 1. You do it that way, and then you do the ALCS, and then the World Series 2, 3, 2. When it comes to that, and yes, I think that's all good and it's all fun, and I enjoyed the hell out of it. Really, really fun. I think the worry about that is that will bleed into November, right? They go way into November, and going a few days, 2 or 3 days into November isn't a big deal. But if you're talking about a week, 10 days, that could be unfortunate, right? That could be, you know, that again, you're talking about competing with the NFL, maybe competing with the NBA basketball season if they decide to, you know, stay doing games, you know, starting the season in October, late October, middle to late October. That's, you know, you're now competing with them as well. So how do you get rid? So how do you not do that? Do you shave down games? That is an option. I personally don't think that is fine. You know, I guess maybe if you went back to 144, maybe. But I don't think like taking like, you know, doing 60 game seasons all the time is really the way to go. I think 60 games was just for COVID, and I think even like 120 will be good as well. I think maybe again you just 18 at the most, and you go to 144, or 150 or something like that. But you don't do too, you don't shave off more than that. I think one way to maybe keep going about that is to do what they also did this year, and that is do actual scheduled doubleheaders. Yeah, actual scheduled doubleheaders, particularly in the summertime, June, July, and August. Schedule these doubleheaders, right? Yes. Schedule these doubleheaders and make it so that like you will have like that. You could be able to bring up people from the minor leagues. You know, so it's scheduled so that you have the splendid roster. 25 men, on a roster, on a normal Major League Baseball roster. Okay, that's fine. So when the Cubs, once again, my team take on the Cardinals. June 23rd, 24th, 25th, and 26th, and the 23rd and 24th are doubleheaders. You know, doubleheaders. That's a 6-game series, right? Or doubleheaders. You know that, so that when it comes around, you can have, the roster can be expanded to 35 if you need them. 35. Or you keep 25, depending on how you feel. You have between 25 and 35 people on your roster, and you can bring up people from your minor leagues so that they can, pitch, hit, whatever. Give people rest if you want to, for the double headers. But let's schedule the double headers. Let's bring back the scheduled double headers. I think that was fun as well. And some of them just wasn't because of COVID. We had a lot of double headers because of COVID, but I also think we had several double headers because of actual double headers and trying to get in these 60 games. So I think I think let's go ahead. Let's have a 16-team playoff, 8 in each league. Get this into it, and to try not to get to have the playoffs go way into November. Let's schedule doubleheaders. And I think if we schedule doubleheaders throughout the season for all of these teams, we can get to a point where those last 4 days in September, you know, the 27th, the 28th, the 29th, and 30th. Those days can be the official schedule for the first round of the Major League Baseball players, where playoffs, where you can have 27th, the 28th, and the 29th have some teams do their 3-game series those days, and then you can have the 28th, 29th, and 30th have some teams do their 3-game series on those days. Take August 1st off, and October 1st, and on October 2nd, bam, there you go. You can start the other round of the Major League Baseball playoffs. And finally, we head to the NFL. We talked about the NBA and their schedules, the college football and their schedules, Major League Baseball, the playoffs and the doubleheaders and things like that. You probably call them the schedules too. It's a schedule situation. We don't have anything having to do with NFL and their scheduling, but there are a couple of things I think could stay. One, their practice squads, right? So, when it comes for COVID-19, what they did was they expanded this practice squad from 10 to 16. I think like there are more players on the practice squad, more better. I think that helps out players. You can have more jobs for players, and it gives all in all, it gives you a more pile of people to go to if things were to happen, right? Also, what they decided to do with the practice squads is that open it up to everybody. Josh McCown was on the practice squad. I can't remember if it was the Eagles practice squad or the Houston Texans practice squad, but I think he's on the Houston Texans now. But he was signed to a practice squad, and he didn't have to leave his home in North Carolina. He was signed to a practice squad, but he didn't have to leave his home in North Carolina. And I think that is something that should happen. Yes, you can sign players to practice squads where they don't have to leave their home. They are like what do you want to call them, designated practice squatters or something like that, emergency practice squatters or whatever. But they wouldn't have to leave their home, wherever their home would be. They wouldn't have to, so they wouldn't have to go to the team's facility each and every day and everything like that. If they didn't need to, and I think he is. And I think that there is something good about that. I also think the fact that Josh McCown has been 16 years in the league is on a practice squad. I think that's good too. I don't think there's from the past, to be on the practice squad, you had to be. It was something where you had to be like have less than 3 years on your career. Been in the league less than 3 years, or I think it was also you had to have less than 400 snaps. Maybe we were like 5 or 6 years in the league, but you didn't have like 400 snaps, because Tyler Bray, he's been in the league more than 4 years, but Bears could always put him on the practice squad. So I think it was something like where he couldn't have to be on their the squad. So I think that was also a rule. So yeah, let's do that with the practice squads. And also, how about the IR rule? I think they've changed the IR rule several times. The first time you were put on injured reserve, you couldn't be taken off, and then years ago they changed the rule that said they designated one could be designated for removal after like 6 weeks of being on IR, and that was the year. I think the first year that was the year that Ray Lewis designated for Baltimore, and then Baltimore went to the Super Bowl and won, beat John Harbaugh, and the Ravens beat Jim Harbaugh and the 49ers. I think it was that year. A couple years later, they decided that okay, well, we're going to designate you. We're going to be two designated. Two designated people can now be taken off. And I think this year they just get rid of that and said if you put on IR, you have to be on IR at least 3 weeks, and then you can be taken off. And I think that's because of the COVID situation and everything like that. So all in all, I think all of them was really it's a really good rule. I think that really should be a rule. And then to add on to that, to be the French fries to that hamburger. If you even know where I'm coming from, they should also just get rid of the whole inactives list on game day inactives. I think that's one of the most stupid things ever. Game day inactives are stupid. There's no reason for that. You have 53 main roster, and then you have to make 7 of them inactive on game day. Why? Why do you need to make them inactive? Go out there with your full complement of people. Go out there with 53 men and whoop somebody else's ass. That's what you should do. You going out there, you go out there with 46 now. No. Go out there, put on 53 people. Now I'm not saying that to have an inactive list. Yes, you should have an active list in case somebody there is like like if you wake up in the morning and Tyreek Hill slept on his elbow wrong, or he's been having elbow issues all week and he can't bend his elbow. Okay, he's inactive. He can't play. Okay, so but it shouldn't be mandatory to have a game day inactive list. Have the game day inactive list, but have it in case something happens. It shouldn't be mandatory. So I think with all of that being said, right, having your practice squads added on to from 10 to 16, and then making sure that anybody, whether you played 16 years or you're the Mr. Irrelevant, or if you're 6 years and you played 200 snaps, whatever, you should be able to be put on the team's practice squad if they like you. They shouldn't have to choose between you and somebody else. I like you, but I think you need some work. I'd like to have you around on my practice squad, but that's not going to do anything. You got too much time on your time card in the NFL. So I don't think that's I think that's wrong. And in the NFL IR rule is injury reserve rule is not. It's time to make sure that the 3 week rule I think is perfect. If you put on injury reserve, after 3 weeks you can come off if you need to. So I think that's the way to do it. Alright, so once again, make sure you go to patreon.com/AJTRIP to become a patron. 3 tiers. Once I get a certain amount of patrons between those 3 tiers, gonna open it up so that you can hear, so that you can see or vote on what you want me to talk about on my podcast, what you like to see me do on the video on my YouTube channel, or what video games you like to see me play on my Twitch channel. If you are a gamer, that is something. Make sure you go follow me on Twitch, twitch.tv/AJTRIP20. Who isn't a gamer these days? Twitch.tv/AJTRIP20. So, for this special episode of the Game According to Me, this simulcast, this YouTube video and this podcast, I appreciate everything that's going on. If you are a podcast listener, thank you guys so much for listening. And you can also support me as well. If you don't want to do it by Patreon, you can also support me. We're going directly to anchor.fm/Andre Triplett Show. We have 3 tiers there as well. 99 cents, $4.99, $9.99. No special perks like you get on the Patreon. But if you feel like you want to support me in some form or fashion, and you're not too thrilled with Patreon or whatever, and you want to support me, you can do it there as well. Believe me, believe you guys, no matter what, whether you're watching this on YouTube or you're listening to this on the podcast, just the fact that you are even doing either or is such a big thank you for me. So I created those. I got those for support, just for support's sake. But it's you don't have to do it. I just appreciate the fact that you're willing to watch my videos, you're willing to listen to my podcast, and for that I am eternally grateful. So just want to let you know that. That being said, for my podcast listeners, thank you guys so much for listening. And again, I appreciate it so much. For my YouTube viewers viewing this, post your comments down below. Tell me what you guys think. What do you guys think of my thoughts on the NBA schedule, the college football schedule, Major League Baseball, the playoffs, the doubleheaders, yada yada yada, and the NFL, the practice squads, and the injured reserve rules. Let me know what you think about it. If you have thoughts on anything else in the sports world that I may have forgotten that has happened during this COVID-19 thing that you would like to see stay, you can post it down there as well. Like the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel, and as always, thank you guys so much for watching. This is your boy AJTRIP signing off. As always, be good to each other, y'all. Be careful out there. And I am out.